So the title for this evening was about establishing whether or not there was any value in blockchain. And it's a bit of a tease, although we'll come back to it. But what I really want to talk about is whether or not blockchain is, in fact, the solution that's looking for a problem. Is that where we're at? Or is it that blockchain actually has something of value to offer? And if it does have something of value to offer, how do we work out what that value is? How do we work out whether we should bother investing in it or not? And that is where TUTI Dx came from. So really briefly tonight, I'm not going to stand here and talk for long. What is TUTI? What it's about? Why am I here to talk about it? What can it tell us? And why is that important? And then where does that take you? Where does that take you afterwards? If you decide it's of value to you, where do you go next? So, TUTI Dx is a diagnostic tool based online, based on the latest research that is around blockchain. And it looks at whichever industrial context you're in, and we'll talk about the industrial context that we've already mined and the ones that we're going to move on to very shortly, looks at the current technologies that you are already employing. So if you run a corner shop and you go to Macro and you buy your stuff and you keep your receipt, and then you sell your stuff and you keep a till receipt, and that's all you do, the chances are that blockchain is not the ideal solution for you. If, however, you have a system or a set of processes that require a lot of information, and it needs to be stored, it needs to be immutable, it needs to be transparent, and it needs to be secure, whatever the application of that information, then it may be that blockchain has something to offer. And so what we're doing with TUTI Dx is two things. One is we're looking at the context that you're coming from and assessing that context in terms of whether blockchain is already established there, whether it's likely to become established there, of what value it is to that context. And then for your organisation specifically, of what value could you make blockchain? Could it be useful for you? Are you ready for it? And if you want to get ready for it, what do you need to do? And how could that not only help you deal with any glitches that might be in the system already, but achieve competitive advantage within your marketplace? Which sounds like a big ask, doesn't it? But we think we've got the answer, or an answer. And one of those is our development of a set of algorithms that give you a set of quotients. So we've broken down that requirement process into its constituent parts that we believe are most important. And from that, we can say, right, on these measures, on these scales, we think you are here, 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 and here. So that suggests that within your context, if it's appropriate to go to blockchain, this is where you would be. We can tell you where you're likely to be within your industrial context in comparison to your competitors. So we can tell you, okay, well, you've got a big fish just sitting around the corner and they're ignoring this technology altogether. They're not doing anything about it at all. And oh, look, this is what you could achieve if you did. And what we can do is we can say, right, this is where the marketplace is, this is where you are, this is how you can best take advantage of it. This is the direction that we think you could take and what we think the steps to travelling in that direction might be. So what do you learn if you engage with the TUTI Dx process? First and foremost, we don't want to sell anybody anything that isn't appropriate. And we're not even selling TUTI Dx at the minute, but what we're saying is that when you get here, the first question is this right for you? Because if it's not, this is not the space you belong in. How could blockchain actually improve what you already do? Will it bring a competitive advantage? And if it is likely to do that, what's the scale of that competitive advantage? Of what value do we think it will be? And are you ready? And if you are, woohoo! What's next? And if you're not, okay, that's all right. What do you need to do? What are the steps that are going to take you to travel in that direction? And the big question about all this, why is it important? The so what question that academics are facing with and grappling with on all occasions is, does it really matter? And we think it does. We think it matters to you because you're in an environment where you need to be able to harness tools that are of optimum value to you. Nobody has got the time to sit around and waste on this stuff. We think that most people need to know where they are in relation to their competitors, and they also need to know what other technologies their competitors are employing and how useful they appear to be, because that's how you can potentially improve your competitive advantage. And this really matters to us, because all of us are involved in Blocknorth or in the block parties because actually we think this is going in the right direction. We think this has potential. We're excited about it and we think it's important. So actually, there is a market value to blockchain and to TUTI Dx, but it's much more about developing the blockchain conversation. It's much more about saying, okay, this is a technology, and like all technologies, it has its drawbacks, it has its limitations, and it has its limits. But it still has tremendous value and is tremendously exciting. And the thing about measuring, the thing about coming back and saying, okay, so what value does this really have, is that that conversation isn't happening yet. There's quite a lot of academic material in terms of where blockchain is getting used, how blockchain is getting used, what platforms it's getting used on. That's there, but what there isn't yet is anything about organisational outcomes. And that's a big gap, and that's going to need filling, and it's going to need filling fairly soon. And so that's part of what we're also really excited about is, okay, now let's prove it. It's all very well talking about it being a good thing and about it having all these tremendous benefits. Prove it. Put your money where your mouth is. Bring the data up and let's see if it really does what we think it does. And so that is the direction that we've been going in. We have an ongoing data capture process, which is helping us deepen and widen our understanding of what's going on in different industrial sectors. Current sectors, I won't read this list out because you're all capable of reading for yourselves, but the current industrial sectors that we're working in are these. So they're pretty comprehensive. The directions we are looking to move into over coming months and years are these. First and foremost with all of this, the question is it right for you? But on the assumption that in these sectors it really could be right for you, then we hope that TUTI Dx will develop into a tool that allows you to work out how and why and to what extent it could be useful. Which takes me to the end. So TUTI Dx, diagnostic tool. First and foremost, it's about making sure we put the right technology in the right place and we don't sell anybody a solution that's looking for a problem. We think it can tell you quite a lot. We think there's quite a lot of data out there and we're working very hard on making sure that data is hard and fast and accurate and that it's of real value. And we think it's important because we see the direction that this market's going in and we want to be involved in it.